Hey everyone, it's Heather with Her Wellbeing, Ayurveda, and Yoga. Namaste. In today's live session, I'd like to focus on a particular part of gut health that I'm always excited to talk about, and that's food. I'm such a big foodie, and so I love to pay special attention to this step in the roadmap, the gut health roadmap. Um, because I feel many people, including myself, are looking for options beyond yogurt or, swallowing a pill, a prebiotic pill. So, what my aim today is to share with you just how delicious it could be, it can be to feed your gut. So important. I do have a slideshow for you, of course. So I'm going to share my screen in just a minute. Um, and we'll talk a little bit about the overview of the roadmap. If you have not heard of that program, my program before, I'm going to switch to full screen here. Here we go. So this is all about the gut health roadmap. And today we're talking specifically about delicious gut health detox foods. So detox doesn't need to be harsh, doesn't need to be boring. In fact, it can be delicious. If you're new, hi, I'm Heather. I'm the founder of Her Wellbeing, Ayurveda, and Yoga. I am a certified Ayurvedic practitioner. I'm also a big time foodie. I'm also a yoga teacher, and I focus specifically on women's wellness. And within women's wellness, specifically on gut health and how we can connect the dots between gut health and balanced hormones. What does balanced hormones even mean? Well, in the language of Ayurveda, it means feeling good, feeling strong, sleeping well, having a stable mood throughout the day. So gut health shows up every day in the way that you feel, in the quality of your life. So that's what balance hormones feels like. Hormones, as you know, are always fluctuating. It's a balancing game, really. So we're trying to trying to support stability within that flow, right? So that we're still feeling strong from one end of the cycle to the next. I'll open up with this. If you're new to the gut health roadmap. So what's beautiful now is we have modern scientific research and the ancient wisdom of Ayurveda in agreement. Yay. So it's smart to improve your gut health because the effects are far reaching. And this is based on scientific evidence now, things that Ayurveda has always known. So, what you'll hear in the research is that it does support immune function, hormone balance, and a healthy, strong gut can lead to comfortable digestion, regular elimination of wastes. And that means um, good energy, good mental clarity, good sleep. It can mean all those things. It also talks about clear skin, um, and sustained energy, right? Sustained energy. If we can't digest our food well, we're not going to enjoy energy that we get from those nutrients. And what I'd like to talk about in my gut health roadmap is that it's not just about food, although that's what we're here to talk about today. it's not just about the food. There are many lifestyle aspects that affect your gut health. And we're going to go over these very briefly before we get into the main attraction. So, the first four steps in the gut health roadmap, I'll start with the four R's. So, they are remove, replace, repopulate, and repair. So in step one, we're removing food triggers that can cause indigestion, inflammation, and for bad gut bugs to proliferate, right? So we want to remove those. And actually, step one and step two can happen around the same time because we're also replacing those bad food triggers that ones that cultivate a positive response in the gut to and then repopulate, right? And this is where today's presentation is really going to focus on replacing with gut-friendly foods and repopulating with foods that are high in prebiotics and probiotics. And then the final four steps are really all about lifestyle. That is what's different about my plan. It's not just about that food. We are not that simple. We also live life on a daily basis. So it's about intentional meals, intermittent fasting, how to do that safely and easily without the stress. Let's just let go of the stress, daily movement, and stress management, all really important aspects of the gut health roadmap. So if you're interested in starting today on that gut health roadmap, in the comments here with this video, you'll see a couple of links where you can learn more. And of course, you can go to my website, forwellbeing.com. For those of you who are attending live, you'll get a follow-up email with those links in the email if you want to get started on that. Spring is the perfect time to do a little bit of a gut reboot. That's something that I suggest for all of my clients to do. And then today, of course, we are talking about those delicious foods that may not be specifically Ayurvedic. So I like to call my approach an east-west approach because that is who I am. I am a little bit of both. And so I embrace the Ayurvedic traditions, but I'm a little bit of a rule breaker in that um, there's so much we can do to really support a delicious, more easeful detox. So this is not a diet. This is absolutely not a diet. I try not to use that word at all. So first, one something I want to talk about is smoothies. Ayurveda, traditional Ayurveda might say like, no, no, smoothies are bad, they're cold, they're congesting, so on and so forth. I think especially in the spring when you're starting to crave lighter foods like fruit, I think it's a great time to introduce smoothies. But if you look at traditional like Westerns smoothie recipes, they can be really heavy on the gut. We're talking lots of bananas and or cocoa and this and that. And so instead we want something really light and refreshing. Now I call these fruit forward smoothies. Fruit's basically fruit. Get yourself whatever fresh fruit looks great in the produce section. You can use frozen too. I've done that as well in a pinch, especially if I want a little tropical fruit and that's not necessarily seasonal or I can't find that in the store. But think of strawberries, blueberries. I'm sorry, my Asian roots, I just love tropical fruit. And so, yes, I will do pineapple and mango even. So again, mainly fruit, blending those up, and then add your favorite mixer like oat milk, hemp milk, coconut milk, or you can just use water, or you can use coconut water. Actually, I really like that as well. And then if you want, add a scoop of hemp seeds, chia seeds, or flax seeds. That is going to, both the fruit and the blended seeds will give your gut a big boost of um, prebiotics because our gut, if you've been listening to my videos, our gut loves plant fiber from things like fruits and nuts and seeds. So, fruit forward. If you want to hear what I'm sipping on these days that I really love, I love mango. And so I love having mango with a little bit of coconut milk. And that is my go-to. It's so simple. I do water it down a little bit because that can be a little heavy. And then I like to add some chia seeds. So that is my favorite, mango or pineapple. So give it a try. What makes this Ayurvedic? What I also do is I would add a few dashes of digestive spices like cinnamon or a little bit of ginger root, just to help with digestion. Because fruit has that cold energy, we want to spice it up just a little bit. You can even do turmeric. I love doing a turmeric pineapple coconut milk smoothie or mango coconut milk smoothie. That's just me. So you do you. And what's beautiful is that you're drawn by the colors. It is such a pleasure to drink. So this can be a snack anytime during the day when you are craving fruit. Okay, next is salads, right? Traditional Ayurveda would say no to salads, right? Because it's cold and raw and maybe not the best for digestion. But again, as we're craving more raw foods, as we get into the warmer months, starting with spring, you may want to have more fresh greens on your plate. And so what I suggest is, springtime is a great time for greens. So using as many different types of greens as you can find in your produce section right now. Red lettuce, green lettuce, radicchio, dandelion is starting to show up on shelves, which is really exciting. And then make a really good mix of all sorts of different greens. Add a little bit of bitter taste, like with radicchio or dandelion, and then add your favorite toppings. It could be grated carrots or beets. Fresh herbs here are a must, I feel like for spring salads. I love dill or parsley, maybe a little sprinkling of toasted nuts or seeds, and then find a favorite lemony, citrusy dressing that you really like. I'm going to give my own recipe in just a moment. So the idea is for this to be light. So we're not adding a bunch of hard, dense vegetables. It's mostly salad greens, mostly greens. One thing I like to do with my salads is adding a scoop of fermented vegetables to the salads and just incorporating that in. It gives it a nice little zesty tang to the greens. And all you really need is a little bit of olive oil and salt and pepper, and you're good. That is a really good dressing. So, as if you've been watching my videos, you know I'm a big fan of making sauerkraut or fermented veggies like sauerkraut at home, like kimchi, so that you have your own homegrown probiotics. There's no need to take big, expensive pills unless, there are certain situations where that might be called for. Your doctor is asking you to do something like that. But I really love to have homemade sauerkraut at hand, and it's so delicious. It's not nearly as sour as the stuff that you get in the store. And this is fresh sauerkraut that is lacto fermented, not the sauerkraut you get that is marinated in vinegar. That's different. That is a different type of sauerkraut. You want the live fermented, lacto fermented sauerkraut or other veggies that have that lactic acid, and that is a probiotic that will help repopulate the gut with good gut bugs. That's what we want. We want more good gut bugs. So the sauerkraut is something that you can sneak in there. I do that for my whole family. They have no idea. I don't even tell them. I just add it in. You can't tell. All right. And then making dressing can be so easy. There's really no need for you to buy dressing. All you need is like a good tasty olive oil, some salt and some pepper, maybe a vinegar of choice. But this is my go-to dressing that I use for all of my salads. If I make a little extra, I might drizzle this on my bowls. So I like to use a base of olive oil. Usually, like depending on how much dressing you're making, if you want to make a batch, you can do like a whole cup at a time. But usually I'm starting with a quarter cup and I'm just making enough for that night. So that dressing is really nice and fresh. I'm adding just a little bit of apple cider vinegar, maybe a tablespoon. And then I like to add a little bit of miso paste. And this will make your dressing a little on the creamy side and give it that umami savory taste, a little bit of honey. Again, these can all be adjusted to your taste. So just taste as you go along. Add some freshly ground pepper. You don't need much salt because the miso paste is salty. If people are wondering, I like the white miso paste for dressings and soups. And then add fresh herbs right into your dressing if you don't do that in your salad, and give that a really good stir. And you'll see that I do this right in, as pictured here, I do this right in a mason jar. And then just use a little whisk and whisk it up. And then I usually will dress my greens just a few minutes before I call everyone to the table. So the greens aren't sitting there in the dressing for a really long time. But that is the best way, is just to do a really, really easy dressing on the spot. Ayurvedic tip here is to add digestive spices. Of course, our favorites like cumin seeds, coriander seeds, or fennel seeds. All of those seeds work really well in dressings, or sprinkle it right on your salad. A little tip, a little foodie tip is to lightly toast the seeds first. Maybe put them in with whatever nuts or seeds you're going to be toasting for your salad, and sprinkle them on directly on your salad after they've cooled off a little bit. And then you get a little crunch. I like to use sunflower seeds, or even slivered almonds, and just toast those up a little bit. And I'll add the seeds to the toasting nuts, and that goes on the salad. So delicious. So salads, yes, I am a big fan of salads. I like to feed my family salads as often as possible, just so they're getting in some fresh greens and such, and some sauerkraut. Okay, so speaking of sauerkraut, fermented veggies are a great thing to incorporate. Really all winter long, it's a great way to keep those probiotics flowing in your gut, to eat a little bit of fermented vegetables every day. And so having these on hand, if you're not going to make them homemade, which is super easy to do, you can look it up online. It's literally just cabbage and salt and thyme. It literally just takes a couple of days. I don't like my sauerkraut super sour, so it's really just on my counter after I salt my cabbage for a couple of days, and then I put it in the fridge, and it continues to ferment in the fridge. But again, this is making homegrown probiotics. Then you do not cook the sauerkraut. You want to add it to your meals before eating. Otherwise, you'll cook all the good microorganisms that we want to remain lively until we introduce them to our gut. So you can, this is a great thing to add to salads, but in general, just having it on the side. So what fermented vegetables that are lacto-fermented have is the lactic bacteria, and that's what keeps good gut bug population going. It's also going to be high in plant fiber, of course. That's our gut bugs love that. And vitamins like B, vitamin C. Cabbage is naturally high in vitamin C, K, iron, and potassium. So there you go. If you want to know what is in fermented cabbage, there we go. Okay. I'm also a fan of kimchi. I make something called white kimchi, and that is kimchi without the hot spices. But if I'm going to use the red chili paste, it's usually in the spring time that I might crave that. So you can add that to this um, very easily if you want to. So it's called sambal or gochujang. Not exactly sure how to pronounce that. You can also use sriracha chili paste also works, just a little squirt in there. But again, we're using Napa cabbage or Chinese cabbage. You're cutting it up. You're adding daikon. You can add julienne carrot, some scallions, ginger and garlic. It's so tasty. So it's the same process as sauerkraut. You're basically creating a brine, and the cabbage sits in this brine as it ferments in room temperature on your countertop in the kitchen. Some people add a little bit of flour or salt, and this is to feed the bugs that are in there. I skip the sugar, but I might add a little bit of flour in there. That's up to you. Honestly, most times I just leave the flour out because it's an extra step. And without the flour, I feel like it's just fine. So, give it a try, white kimchi, and add it in your salads, your bowls, et cetera, et cetera. Um, this brings us to my next favorite ingredient, quinoa. I love rice, but having rice throughout the winter can eventually feel kind of heavy. And so I like to switch over to quinoa or alternate with quinoa. And I love having it in a bowl. So I might just make some plain quinoa and then put it in a bowl with lots of different ingredients, basically whatever you have on hand. So I might dice up some avocado, add some sliced cucumbers, add a little side salad, a scoop of fermented veggies like sauerkraut or kimchi, maybe some cooked lentils, grates, carrots, or beets, scallions, or like I talked about, toasted nuts or seeds, sprinkling that right on top of the bowl. So an Ayurveda tip here is to add plenty of cooked elements and then make a satisfying dressing for your whole bowl, like we had just talked about. And so that everything gets coated with this dressing. It's not only tasty, but it's also going to help with digestion. All right, so quinoa is a great item. Miso is another one that I love to use, especially in the winter, after the winter time of a lot of like heavy, creamy soups. I'm usually ready for something a little lighter, and miso can be just the thing. It is made from fermented soybeans. It comes as a paste. And so it's very, very easy to prepare. You don't want to boil miso because then you'll destroy those probiotics that are in the organisms that are in as probiotics in the miso. So usually what I'm doing is just making a paste and then adding warm water, maybe not too hot, but then you can add anything to your bowl, like mung bean sprouts, scallions. You can cook a little bit of noodles to put in there, chop up some bok choy, use some cabbage slaw, some spinach, carrot ribbons, little drizzle of sesame oil can be really nice here. And so it's almost like you're building a salad on top of a bowl of miso soup. And it's so satisfying to have both cooked and raw vegetables here. That's usually how Asian soups go. You'll have like a cooked element, but with some raw elements in there as well. And then you might like a big squeeze of lemon on over everything, or use your salad dressing on your miso bowl before you enjoy this. So I love miso. It's very, very tasty and great for your gut. It can be a light side to a meal, or it can be the main attraction. Here's my recipe for an apple cider tonic. So we're getting into beverages here. I love apple cider for its zingy taste. So you want to look for one that is raw and unprocessed if you can find that. That really helps with digestion, especially if your digestion is feeling kind of slow and sluggish. If your digestion is feeling burny and acidic, maybe adding more vinegars not going to be feel as helpful. But what I like about my tonic is that really there's just a little bit of vinegar in here. So this is for a batch of 4 cups. You'll use 4 cups of water and just about 2 or 3 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar for the 4 cups of water. So you can do this in a big mason jar. If you want, you can use a whole quarter cup. Usually that's 3 tablespoons. If you want to add some digestive spices like cinnamon, ginger, and turmeric, you can do about a half teaspoon of each. And then you want to do this room temperature too, because you want the honey, do 2 good tablespoons or more of good unprocessed local honey. It doesn't have to be raw, but just unprocessed so that it's not heated. And stir that in, shake that up really well. You can put it in a jar, seal the lid, give it a really good shake. And that is delicious. I love that. You can serve it here, as you can see pictured here, with a little sprig of rosemary and a slice of apple or lemon wedge. So, so yummy. I really love this, especially first thing in the morning, and then I'll sip on it throughout the day. And it'll last maybe sometimes into the next day as well. And again, I don't leave it on the counter. It's fine unrefrigerated because you're going to drink it in a day or two. Anyways, okay. That is our apple cider tonic. And then I love mocktails um, because we get to use our creativity and imagination, just playing with different ingredients to come up with something that's really tasty. So usually you're using sparkling water as a base and then adding your favorite flavors. So you might fill an 8-ounce glass, maybe halfway, 4 ounces of sparkling water. And then you can add a little bit of juice. You can add some pureed fruit. That's really delicious. If you're using honey or anything else, go ahead and puree it with the fruit because it's harder to mix the honey in with everything else. I love using hibiscus tea. It's a beautiful red color. You can add citrus slices. You can use lemonade. If you find sparkling lemonade, that's a nice shortcut. I also love to use certain herbal elements like rose hips, rose petals or powder, or even fresh herbs, as you see here, a little sprig of mint. So it's really fun as think about your favorite cocktail and try remaking that without the alcohol. Alcohol, as you can probably guess, um, kills good gut bugs in our stomach. If it's in moderation, it's probably okay, but a daily habit of a drink or more can definitely do a number on your gut health and not in a good way. So, reducing alcohol can be a good idea if you want to boost gut health. And then try a cocktail instead. So I love using red berries and pureeing them like raspberries or pureeing some other fruit, maybe like mango. I might even do a pina colada with mango and coconut milk and leave out the sparkling water. So give it a try. It's really fun and it can be a very tasty adventure. I also like to add adaptogenic herbs here in my mocktails, which is a great thing to do, especially if you're going to enjoy this towards the end of the day. You can sip away knowing that you're enjoying herbs that are going to help your nervous system and brain wind down. and get a good night's sleep. I don't know if you've noticed, but usually when you over indulge in alcohol, it affects our sleep. Even like I've noticed, even one glass of wine or one cocktail can change my sleeping patterns. So, having something like ashwagandha stirred in, or something like tulsi, you can make tulsi tea to add to your sparkling beverage. So there's lots of different adaptogens, not just Ayurvedic, Western ones, like you can do a passion flower um, uh, tea to add to a sparkling mocktail or things like that. Ashwagandha is probably my favorite, just because it does help mellow you out and get ready for sleep. So, um, that's totally optional, but it's something that I really love to do. Okay, so that's what I have today. Those are my favorites that I'm putting out to you to try. So when you think of feeding your gut, doesn't have to be like a diet or torture. It's really about incorporating certain foods in a delicious way to make it fun and make it enjoyable. It does not have to be a chore at all. If you're curious about the state of your gut health, I do have a quiz that you can take, and I'll include that in the comments. So if you feel like your gut needs a little TLC, take the quiz to find out if in fact your gut health is getting in the way of feeling like you, more like you every day. All right, excellent. I believe that is all for my presentation. But if you're interested in joining my online community, please join us. The In Her Balance community is the one that I lead. You can get step-by-step guidance from my programs. I offer live sessions like today and replays. And for the gut health roadmap, there is a journal workbook that'll help you track your progress, which is really important to do because as you track your progress, that helps to boost your sense of accomplishment, which is a reinforcement loop. So I love using trackers. And of course, anyone is welcome to book a call with me. And you can do that if you go to my website directly at herwellbeing.com. You can book a free discovery call with me right on my homepage. Thank you again for joining me today. I hope you found this to be helpful. I'll stop sharing for a moment. Um, and I just want to say, any questions, please do reach out. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Namaste.